Civil servants will be getting their lowest year-end bonus since the global financial crisis a decade ago. The Public Service Division saying it's exercising restraint in view of economic uncertainties. Most civil servants will get a 0.1-month bonus with an added one-off lump sum payment of up to $1,500.
Now, for more on this, we're joined in studio by Jamus Lim. He's an economist at Thirdrock Group and associate professor at Essec Business School. Jamus, thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So, firstly, was this big sort of dip in the year-end bonus expected? Was there writing on the wall?
Well, certainly the fact that the economy has not performed too well, especially in the middle of the year. In the second quarter, we had a negative contraction. That would have given us some hints that, of course, bonuses wouldn't have been as great as we might have expected. Of course, from a personal perspective, for any given individual that is receiving this small bonuses, that would nevertheless be disappointing.
Right. So will the private sector follow suit? You know, after all, this is actually quite a good indicator.
Our sense is that it really depends. For the private sector, you know, it's far more diverse, so in the sense it depends on the sector that they happen to be in, as well as overall economic conditions, which have picked up a little bit in the third quarter and possibly will continue to strengthen into the fourth quarter. So while it is the case that the public sector will send a reasonable and credible signal for the rest of the economy, for any given private sector individual, it really depends on which position they rest in this particular economy.
Should we expect, though, for Singapore to witness or to see sort of less spending towards the end of this year? I mean, we've just had Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and sort of on this news with, you know, Christmas looming. It is a time where people like to go out and, you know, celebrate. People
do go out, people do celebrate, but it's also important to keep in mind that we are on a slightly different cycle from the rest of North America and so on. So for us, really, Christmas spending, while non-trivial, is far less substantial than spending for our other major holidays, especially Chinese New Year, which is 5 to 10 times larger in terms of spending.
So will we see less spending for Chinese New Year then, if that's the case?
Well, it really depends, as I suggested earlier, on how we evolve. Our sense is that the Singapore economy, owing in part to some easing of trading tensions, as you had mentioned early on, together with what we see to be essentially a bottoming and a slight recovery in the electronic cycle, we think that given all those facts, the Singapore economy is positioned to do much better in the fourth quarter and into the year ahead. So we are actually quietly optimistic about prospects in that regard.
Okay, well, and to elaborate on that, then tell us sort of which sectors, you mentioned electronics there, which sectors sort of look like they could be having sort of a quicker rebound, if you like, and which ones do you think will continue to struggle somewhat?
Well, of course, the ones that are most exposed to trade, these are typically the ones that rebound the quickest. So we expect a relatively slower recovery for, you know, the more inward-looking service-oriented sectors, and, you know, things like logistics and trade, and as well, tentatively, to the extent that we see this in manufacturing as well, we'll be hopeful that these are the sectors that will bounce back.
Okay. What kind of additional support do local SMEs and lower wage workers need, you know, over this period of uncertainty then?
Well, I've always been a strong advocate of expansion of the social safety net that we have in Singapore. We do have some of it. There is an automatic stabilizer in the form of CPF changes and so on, and of course people get to keep their jobs as a result. But I would like to see some kind of unemployment insurance that's set in place, something that workers who are just displaced for a short period, 3 months or 6 months, can actually look to as a form of cushion for them to get back on their feet while they look for another job.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Jamus, for coming in and speaking to us. Jamus Lim, economist at Thirdrock Group and associate professor at Essec Business School.